So welcome to this cooking demonstration. We're going to go over some basic cooking fundamentals. So we're going to sear and cook a piece of beef perfectly. We're going to go over the fundamentals on mashed potatoes and how not to make them gluey or lumpy. How to perfectly cook asparagus, greens in general. We're going to make a simple and easy salad with a nice dressing. And we're going to make one of my favorite desserts, sticky toffee pudding. So for the purposes of timing, we're going to work backwards. So we're going to start with the dessert, and once that's in the oven, we'll get going on searing the beef, the potatoes, and the asparagus, and then we'll finish up with the salad. There's a lot to get in, and you don't have to do this at my pace. There's going to be a recording, so you'll be able to go back on it. You'll also be able to take notes. The salad is pre-made, so all you have to do is just throw it together. Same with the dessert, but we'll be cooking the beef, the potatoes, and the asparagus. So we're going to get going with the sticky toffee pudding. So we're going to start by putting our dates and some water into a pan with a little bit of vanilla and some rum. And those dates are going to get soft. We're going to bring it up to a simmer. We're going to cook off the alcohol, and then that's going to get processed into a puree that will fold into our flour, our butter, and our sugar, which will create our batter that we're going to put into a mold. So we'll get going with that. So take a saucepan right here. Whenever I'm trying to bring something up really quick, I like to use a wide bottom pan, more surface area, more heat. Just brings things up quickly. So we're going to go straight in with our dates, our mature dates. These have been pitted, 7 ounces. Go in with our rum as well. I want to go in with the rum first, so I can cook up all that alcohol. While that pan's warming up, we're going to get started on our caramel as well. So again, for the caramel, I want to heat my pan up. And the liquor's going to go in first. So you can use any liquor. We've got spiced rum right here. Brandy, whiskey, or bourbon would be a really good choice. So we're just cooking up this alcohol while it's flaming as well. It's caramelizing all the sugars. We get a nice toasty aroma. We're going to go in for water. Then we're going to cover, bring that up to a simmer. Yeah, me okay. Same with the caramel, cooking up all that alcohol, sugar, with the butter, a little bit of water. Now, for caramels, you want a really clean pan. Any dirt is going to crystallize the sugars, and it's going to get really lumpy if it's not going to be smooth. You're going to have issues with it. So a really clean pan. Try not to move it too much. Never use a wooden spoon. You always use a metal spoon or a metal whisk. So that butter's going to melt, and we can just forget about this for now. It might boil up in a little bit, but I'm just going to try to remember to turn the heat down before it goes. Things move in there. So I'm going to check on my dates. Once that comes up to the boil, I'm just going to take the lid off. Put the lid on just to speed things up. Okay, so while that's going on, we're going to sift the flour. All-purpose flour. We sift it just to get the lumps out. So that's just going to go in. I'm just going to use a spoon to push it through. You'll notice that I'm going to use 1,000 different pans tonight. You don't have to do that. Why my girlfriend hates it when I cook at home. Okay, so you notice some lumps here that would have gone into your batter if you didn't sift it. So you can just push them through. And we're going to add our baking soda and our cinnamon to that mix as well. Again, just push it through. Any lumps that don't want to go through, you can just discard. So our base looks pretty good. I'm just going to turn that off and come over to the blender. That's just going to go in. So, and I'm just going to make sure the blender's off before I put anything on. And make sure the lid's on so we don't get an explosion. Hand down, and I'm just going to pulse. It's up to you how far you take this. We pulse just to disperse the flavor, obviously. You can make it into a smooth puree. I personally like to have little pieces for a bit of texture. So I'm just going to blend it slightly. And this is going to go over here to cool for a little bit. Actually, we're going to go into a bowl. It'll cool a lot quicker on a wider surface area. Because when we mix this into our sugar and butter mixture, we don't want to melt the butter. We want to keep that butter as cold as possible. Okay, so this can actually go in the fridge while we work on our butter and sugar now. So butter at room temp. There it is. Sugar. And just going to work this butter to a paste. You know what? I'm going to do this with my hands. I'm making the hands dirty. Normally I'd put it in the KitchenAid, but I don't want to do too many dishes tonight. So I'm basically creaming the sugar into the butter. So you're left with a paste. It should come away from the bowl pretty easily. You don't want to see any lumps. You just want to see one nice smooth paste. Okay, that can go straight into our flour mixture. Just with the paddle, I'm going to mix these two together. just going to go on low so that flour doesn't go all over the place. Then gradually speed it up. So we get a crumb. Now we're going to slowly add our eggs. So there's 1.5 large eggs, but I have medium eggs, so I'm going to do 2. I always have something to just put trash in, so I'm not walking back and forth to the trash can every 10 minutes. So I'm just going to show this to you guys. Want to be left with a nice smooth paste. That's what you're looking for. You bring it a little closer. Nice smooth paste. Ideally, actually that's pretty cold. Ideally, you want to leave this for another 15 minutes. We're just going to go with it. So in with our date paste. I'll take that back. Yeah. We're going to go in with our vanilla. A little squirt. And just bring that together again. It smells like Christmas. It smells great. Now it's okay to put some speed into this. If you want to put a little bit of air into it, you got a nice fluffy cake. I'm going to beat that up. That consistency looks perfect. Okay. So you want it to look like cake batter. And when you stir it, you want to be able to see shapes in the top of it. That's called ribbon. You want to be able to hold it up and it just pulls off the spoon. Not too fast, but there's definitely some give. Okay, so we're just going to let that rest for a couple of seconds while we go to our molds. So I just got some butter at room temperature, and I got 4 little molds right here. This would probably do maybe 8 of these, or a nice size casserole pan. Same applies. You just butter the pan, put the batter in, and then stick it in the oven. So just gonna get our butter in and twist. Just make sure I get into all these little edges. That's good. 1. 2. 2 is going to be enough for today. So whichever vessel you put this into, it's going to rise maybe an extra third. So I'm going to fill this up just over halfway, and it's going to rise up to just inside the edge. And what that's going to do is leave me enough room. So we're going to prick some holes in it when it comes out of the oven, and then we're going to pour that caramel over. That's going to sink in, almost like making a tres leches. So One. And what's cool about this recipe is you don't have to stop at dates. You could put any kind of dried fruit you want, sour cherries. You could put some chopped nuts in it, some chopped walnuts. Some crystallized ginger is really nice if you chop that in. You know, make it your own. Some apricots, some dry blueberries. Okay, so we're just going to tap them down. So these are going to go in the oven, 350 degrees. At this size, they're probably going to take about 25 minutes, 20 minutes. I'm going to check them after 20 actually. And for a casserole dish this size, probably check it after 30 minutes. We're probably going to have to pull it at 35, depending on if your oven's fan assisted or not. So in we go. Okay, so I set a timer for 12 minutes. I'm going to rotate them and then set it for another 12 minutes. Okay, so just going to check on this caramel real quick. Boiling away nice, you got a nice color. Nice smooth. That's going to go for about another 5 minutes. The trick is to not make the caramel too thick, because when you go to pour it over the pudding, it won't absorb. So you want it to be thin, and then you're going to reserve half of that, and then that's going to be reduced a little bit more for when you actually serve the pudding. Okay, so dessert's in. We're going to start on our entree now. So we're going to start with mashed potatoes. So whenever I peel something, I like to have a piece of parchment down. Saves me having to clean up too much. It saves me having to change my board too many times. If I'm peeling 5 different vegetables, I'm going to get them all done at once. And then this can just get rolled up and thrown in the trash, and I can move on with my day. So we're just going to peel these potatoes. First, we're going to season our water. With any vegetables that generally come out of the ground, you want to cook them from cold and bring them up. The reason you do that is because they're so dense. You don't want the outside to cook before the inside does. So you want to bring them up gradually in cold water, or at least room temperature water. And then the opposite for any green vegetables like haricot bear, sugar snap, asparagus. You want boiling water, heavily salted, and they've got to be in and out pretty quick. So I'm just going to peel these potatoes. And the reason it's taking me so long is because there's a lot of imperfections in the potato, a lot of bruising, these brown spots, these oxidized spots. And I don't want those in my potatoes. I want perfect match. So I'm going to try and peel them off. And you can actually use, if they're deep, use the corner of your peeler and just pull it out like that. Again. Do you have any questions, Ben, so far?
No questions at the moment. Just to remind everybody viewing, you can type in a question on the question panel at any time, and I'll stop chef and have an answer for you.
Okay, so I'm going to season my water. Good rule of thumb is 2.9 salinity, so that's pretty much how the ocean would taste. So when you're cooking vegetables, it's really important to taste the water. You want it to taste like the sea. Okay, so I don't want to cut my potatoes up too small, and that's because I don't want them to absorb too much water. There's a lot of ways to cook these potatoes for mash. We can actually bake them as well. For this video, it's going to take too long, so I'm just going to cut them into quarters. Okay, now that's going to go on. They're going to come up to a simmer and probably cook for about 7 to 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. So the reason you don't want the potato to absorb any water is because you want the potato to absorb fat. When I was at the Savoy, they said the ratio for potato to fat was 40% fat, which is a lot of butter. They were delicious, but very unhealthy. So we're not gonna do 40%. We're gonna do about 30%. But that's gonna make them really silky, really creamy. And that's what we're looking for. So we move on to our asparagus real quick. Just peel these. My first job, I had to peel 2,000 of these a day. Pretty fun. So for our entree, we're just going to do one person. Are you eating powder? So I'm just going to cook 6 pieces. So some people don't know how to where to cut the asparagus. Just kind of snap it. Usually that's a good rule of thumb. It's not too woody, actually. You should taste it. To preference, I kind of like it too. But that's our mark right there. Next one. So these are too small. These are pretty small, so I don't want to put too much pressure. I don't put too much pressure on the peeler, because what we're going to end up doing is peel half the asparagus away. So I'm just going to be really light. To take off that skin, it's waxy. It's not great. So generally, you want to peel your asparagus, unless it's pencil asparagus. Then the skin's usually a little bit more tender and usually edible.
Quick question of clarification, Chef, from the audience. Trying to ask, are we to make these as you make them? Maybe you want to reiterate your process.
For the purpose of the video, I'm moving pretty fast just to get everything in, and everyone's going to be moving at a different pace. So you can cook with me as I'm doing it, or you can just make notes and take it at your own pace. I mean, that's what I recommend. Not everyone has everything at hand like I do right now, so I recommend just take it at your own pace. But the key is to just take the notes.
And again, we will have this video available.
Yeah, the video will be available as well, so you can play it back. Okay, see, I've got a nice clean board now. my asparagus ready to go. I don't want to cook this too early because this is only going to take literally a couple seconds. But actually, we're going to show you how to blanch, so let's do that. So blanching refers to usually cooking greens or cooking something, and usually, it means cook halfway. So we want to retain. We don't want to put it in the boiling water and then bring it out and then leave it on the side and it's still cooking. It's it's very delicate. It's small. That heat's just gonna keep cooking it away. So we're gonna put it in the hot salty water and then we're gonna stick it straight into this ice bath, which is gonna shock the greens. Keep that beautiful green color. It's actually gonna get a lot more green, a lot more vibrant, and keep it crunchy. Again, so heavily salted water. You want to taste that dressing. That's just going to go in for about literally 25 seconds, just because it's so small. If you guys are at Williams-Sonoma or any one of those places and you see these, this is my favorite tool in the kitchen. It's a cake tester. It's great for testing temperatures. And I'll show you a way to do that for the beef, but also checking vegetables, checking cakes. So it's a great tool. So what I did there, I just picked up the asparagus. I just kind of pressed it a little bit. I wanted to feel some give. Still pretty firm. So we're gonna give that another couple of seconds. Do that, make it caramel whisk. Ready actually? Another. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, just go straight into the ice water. We'll move it around, straight in more surface area, cooling it down quicker. I don't know if you can see how much greener that just got.
Yeah, it shows.
Yeah. And I'm actually picking it up, it's still warm, so don't be shy to leave it in there for a while. Okay, so while that's cooling down, we're going to try beef. Oh, we got the beef. I always like to have a tray with just a towel. This can be for water or fat. They can just go on there. This paper is just going to absorb. You can use kitchen paper or anything. It's just going to absorb all the moisture. So now we're going to get started on our beef. The Chateaubriand is the center cut of the tenderloin. Very lean, very flavorful. Lots of little pieces of fat running through it, so it's nice and juicy. What I recommend with big proteins from you go to Publix and in the morning and you want to cook your short rib at night, as soon as you get it home, season it. That seasoning is just going to pull out all the moisture from the surface area. It's just going to create a better sear come when you need it. Because obviously you got a nice smoking hot pan and you want that temperature to stay up, and you introduce a soggy piece of meat, what's going to happen? That water is going to turn to steam and you're not going to create the crust that you want. So make sure your proteins are always nice and dry. As you can see here, this is a piece of paper, super dry. So we're just going to season this. Don't be shy with the salt. I like to season from high. If you season too close, you only season that one particular area. If you season from high, it disperses a lot more evenly. go with some pepper. But when I go to a friend's house and they ask me to jump on the grill because I'm a chef, and they bring out all of these weird and wonderful seasonings, I kind of just leave them to one side and say thank you, no thank you. Especially when you got a beautiful piece of beef like this, you really want the beef to shine. You can't go wrong with salt and pepper on a hot pan. That's really all you need. So a nice wire rack or resting tray. So we're going to sear this. We're going to get that nice Maillard reaction. That's the sugars turning to the crust. Turning looks beautiful. I'll potatoes real quick. Go into the cake dresser. Go in there. So yeah, resting rack. So once it comes out of the pan, we're going to finish it in the oven, low and slow, to get a nice, consistent pink center. I don't know if you notice sometimes if someone cooks the steak too hot, it looks like a gray on the outside with like a little red dot in the middle. That's because it was cooked too quickly. So resting rack, when it goes in the oven, that's going to create airflow and it's going to stop the underside from sweating and obviously create a more even cook. So I'm going to cast iron pan. I'm going to cook steaks with something that holds heat really well. You don't want to use something too thin. See, but you can't control the temperature of the pan. It's going to burn, or it's going to steam. Just use heavy bottom pans whenever possible. So let's talk about fat. When you cook steaks, I was just saying you need that high heat. So olive oil doesn't really do well with high heat. It tends to burn after 380 degrees to 400, and you start to get bitter notes. So canola oil, peanut oil, clarified butter works pretty well. There's a list, but for this we're going to use a little bit of canola oil, a little bit of clarified butter. I want to use the clarified butter just for that flavor. So original pan, very much fat. Let's clarified butter over here. And clarified butter is drawn butter. What we do is bring it up, we take out all of the impurities, all the water out of it. That's clarified butter. So this was perfect. Just gonna wait for this to smoke. Down a notch. Just gonna press. What's happening is, especially if you put it straight out of the fridge, I recommend letting your beef come out to reset for half an hour. It's going to seize up, and then it's going to have a little gap underneath. So I really want to keep that down for about 20 seconds. I'm just going to start to move it a little bit. The more you move the protein, the more even cook you get, especially on the grill. look good. A little bit more fat. While that's doing that thing, I'm going to grab this piece of garlic. I'm just going to grab this garlic by the root, cut it in half. Use that for our potatoes later. Potatoes are still not there. And again, the smaller you cut the potatoes, obviously the faster you cook, and you get into the absorbing too much moisture. And what we're actually going to do when those potatoes come out is they're going to go into the oven for about 2 minutes, just to help that moisture come out of the potato. Okay, so we're a nice color on that side. Okay. I don't know if you guys see that nice crust right there. So in your basket, you're going to have something labeled demi. That's veal demi-glace. It's a sauce that we make. It takes about 3 days to make. It's a reduction of veal bones for the first couple days, and then we add roasted beef scraps to it, which gives it the color, the flavor. And then lastly, we have a pinsage, which is the herbs, the aromats, the wine. And this is what we're left with, beef jus, red wine jus. So now I'm just going to start searing the edges. I want to sear in all that juice. So I'm going to slowly move it around. I'm going to start lowering the temperature of the pan, because once this is seared, we're going to deglaze with some herbs, some garlic, and some butter. Keep that pan down just a tad. Spoon. Okay, so we're going to go cut side down into the pan. Some time. A little bit more fat. You can actually go with olive oil now, because the temperature's down. This is my favorite bit. This is how we baste the steak. Bring a moisture barrier around it for when it cooks. So just to the front of the pan, we'll have to tilt the pan and we get a nice foam, and we can start the baste. I wish you could smell this. I'm sure you will when you start to do it. You really want to see it floating like this. And again, you don't want your pan to be too hot because you get burned from it. Got a good picture on that. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm just going to put a towel down so I don't get the table too hot. Pull this piece of beef out. Oh, it smells amazing. Garlic. Thyme. Okay, now this is going to go in the oven. The lower the better, in my opinion. 250 is probably a little too time consuming. 300s, if you've got a little bit of time, we're going to go in at 350. It's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. It's almost like I planned it. That's right. So just going to use our cake tester. Comes out clean. It's ready to go. I don't want to poke holes in it yet because it's still cooking. It's still hot. It's still going to try and release all that moisture. I want that moisture to stay in there. So I'm not going to poke that too early. Give it a couple minutes. Back to our veal sauce. It should be in your basket. All you have to do is just warm it up, a couple thyme sprigs, taste it for seasoning, and this sauce is ready to go. So that's just going to go in there. A couple thyme sprigs. Should be good. Done for that. So I'm going to check the beef after about 7 minutes. In the box, you've got these little probes. There's a couple of ways I like to check beef. If my probe's not working, I like to use my cake tester. Simply put the cake tester into the beef or the chicken. Leave it there for about 5 seconds. You want the tip to go right to the center because that's what you're interested in. It's the center. So right into the center. You whip it out and just under your lip. If it's just above body temperature, that's usually perfect medium rare. It feels a little bit warm, a little bit too warm, that's medium. And anything that's uncomfortable is going to be medium well. And then anything that burns your lip is well done. So depending on what you want to do. And then obviously have some sanitizer for this to go back in. We don't do that here. This is how I like to do it at home. We like to use thermometers. So for the thermometer, for a nice rare piece of beef, you want to be looking at about 110 degrees, so 115. For medium rare, 120 to 122. Medium is about 125 to 126. And then well done is about 140. Right there. Okay. So now we're going to make our start on our salad. We're going to make our pickles and we're going to make our dressing. So the pickles are really easy. We're going to take apple cider vinegar. For the purposes of the recipe, it's apple cider vinegar and sugar. But you can use any vinegar you like: red wine vinegar, champagne vinegar, white wine vinegar, rice wine vinegar. It really doesn't matter. You just want to create that agrodulce, that sweet and sour. So apple cider vinegar. Granulated sugar. Couple pinches of salt. And depending on how sour you like your pickles, you can either add water or not. Add a splash of water, just so my vinegar doesn't over-reduce. Then we'll simply bring that up to a simmer. While we're doing that, let me just process this red onion real quick.
Quick question from the crowd, Chef.
Yeah.
Is it okay to preheat the demi-glace in the microwave?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Same with the caramel sauce as well. You can put the caramel sauce in the microwave. So speaking of reheating the dessert, you can pop it in the oven. If you do, I recommend almost a double boiler. So if you have a heavy bottom tray, something like this, or a little bit deeper, you can just place the desserts like so, just with a little bit of water at the bottom, just so they don't get too hot and burn on the bottom. You just want to warm the fruit gently. So a little bit of water when you reheat the dessert. So I like to just take the root out. So just come in on the angle, slice out that root, square everything up, and then slice up. I'm just going to go into a little container right here. And as soon as that liquid comes up to a simmer, it's just going to go over the top of the onions, sit there till it comes down to room temperature, then they're ready to eat. Or you can keep them in the fridge for up to a month. So I'm going to go back to our potatoes, trusty cake tester. And that's super soft, so they're ready to go. So what I'm going to do, just a little bit of olive oil at the bottom of this. So the olive oil is just going to stop them from sticking while they dry it in the oven. As you can see, you want them to be fluffy. It's really easy. You don't want to be fighting with your potato when it comes to ricing it or mashing it or however you're going to process. While in the oven, I'm going to turn my beef around. Oh, it smells so good. Okay, my vinegar is came up. I'm just going to do a little taste everything. Perfect. That's just going to go right over the top. Okay, so they can go over here. So as I said, about 1 to 2 minutes on those potatoes. While they're doing that, we're going to get the cream working for them. So that was two medium-sized potatoes. So I'm going to go about 1/4 cup, half a cup of cream, and about 3 to 4 ounces of butter. So with this, I'm going to add my roasted garlic that you have in your box. That's just going to infuse into the flavor of the cream. I'm going to bring that up to till the butter's melted. These potatoes look good. They're nice and dry. You can see how they start to get a little white around the edge. Perfect. Go into a pan, and I'm going to get my potato ricer. If you don't have one of these, a masher will work fine, or even the KitchenAid with the paddle, or the whisk. You can simply whisk the potatoes to break them up, but you don't want to break them up too much because they have starch in them. So the more you work these potatoes without the fat, the gluier they're going to get. So what really helps is the butter. The butter will coat the starch and create a barrier for that starch to activate. So it's going to take a little bit. Needs a couple more minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our dessert. This is coming away from the edge. That's a good sign. We're just going to take this and break a bunch of holes in it. A kebab skewer or like a toothpick would probably work better. It's a little bit thicker. So you get bigger holes. So a couple of holes in that. Now we're just going to add our caramel. It's going to seep into the holes. Going to make it nice and moist. This caramel is going to go back onto the heat to reduce further to get a better consistency to serve around the dessert. I think we're going to add a little bit of cream to it as well. Next, we can forget about these for the time being. That's just going to absorb all that butter and sugar. I'll go to our pan for potatoes. A light heat. I'm going to start off adding half my cream. A large section. So in with my potatoes is the rice. It should go to super easy. Now I'm just going to gently coat potato. Before I start working it too much. It's now coated. Start. Block it again. Plug in. Not getting over white, not getting gluey. I like to use Idaho potatoes or anything that pops up really nice. Right there with the starchy potatoes. Okay, so I'm going to start this stream for the starch in case they dry out a bit too much. What did I forget to do? Forgot to taste it. Couple grains of salt. I don't know, Pablo, tell me what you think. Perfect. All right. We're just gonna temp our beef real quick. As I said, you can use a cake tester if you're at home. You're not worried about so 5 seconds. Still freezing cold. Just double check with a probe. You don't want to probe your beef too much because you don't want to poke holes in it and it bleeds out. So yeah, we're at about 105, which is what I thought with this. So we got another 5 to 7 minutes. I'm actually going to lower the oven. I don't want to try and ease into it. I don't just don't want to blast it the whole way. Just ease into the cook. Because it's almost there now. You just want to get the middle to 120. All the hard work's done. It's just you can close for the rest of the way. And that way, when you turn the oven down, you don't have to worry about overcooking it. You know, it's on its way down now. So we're going to go back to our asparagus water. Looks great. So now we're just going to build our salad real quick. We're going to make our dressing for that. Pretty simple. Got salt, oils. So we're going to start with our mustard. Good thing about mustard in dressings, it acts as an emulsifier. It has a lot of protein in mustard seeds. So it's going to help give your dressing creaminess. Same thing with egg yolks, but if you're worried about using raw egg yolks in dressings, then mustard will do the trick. So we're going to go a little bit of sugar, a little pinch of salt. We're going to get some olive oil. Some oil. Sugar also acts as an emulsifier. So we're going to go in with our maple syrup. Lastly, if you don't have this at home, don't worry about it, but I like to use a little bit of walnut oil, gives it a nice toasty note. I'm just going to whisk that. Start to look like a paste. And then from there, we add our vinegar. Then finish with oil. Taste. Wow, nailing it. I think it needs a little bit more salt. A couple of twists of pepper. Now we have our dressing. So we're just going to assemble our salad. Turn this oven down again in case she gets away from me. residual heat in there, so I know it's going to be fine. It's not going to not cook. So we're going to take a little piece of parchment paper whenever you cut in beets. This beet's already been cooked. I like to roast the beets, a lot of salt on the skin, a lot of olive oil, and then wrap them in aluminum foil. Again, use your cake tester to test if they're done, same as the potato. And then take them out of the aluminum and make sure you peel them when they're hot. That steam's going to help release the skin from the flesh, and it's going to be a lot easier than when they're freezing cold and you end up throwing them in the trash. So just going to cut them into nice bite-sized pieces. I'm using parchment to save the board from any stains. They're going to go into my bowl. They go in first because I want to season them. So, a couple of twists of pepper. Generous amount of salt. Beets like salt. Hard to over season them. From there, I'm going to go in with my pickled onions. Don't worry if you get vinegar in there. Good flavor. My toasted walnuts. You can just break them up with your hand. I like to do that. You get a bunch of different pieces. Crumbles. I like gorgonzola. I think it's the least offensive with the blue cheese. I don't say offensive. It's not as strong. It's nice and creamy. So I'm going to go and check my beef real quick. Couple more minutes, that'll be perfect. We're not going to make the mousse. We're just going to put some nice pieces of avocado in. Probably should have done that for your baskets. I think the mousse might oxidize by the time you got it home, so I apologize for that. It'll still be good, but if you don't want to use it, you don't have to. So, with my avocado. And again, I'm going to season those. Oh, yeah, seasoning onto everything. So every little bite's hot for flavor. Now that's maybe arugula. I don't like too much lettuce or leaves. I like the salad to be really vegetable forward. So the ratio is important, I guess. Then as much dressing as you like. Put some gloves on for this part. That dressing will be good for a month, 2 months in the fridge. I recommend if you're going to make it, just double up on the recipe. Then you've got some. So when you're throwing this salad around, just be gentle. You don't want to like punch it. You just want to be nice and soft. Just pick it up. Create some height. It looks beautiful. So there's a salad. Okay, so our salad's ready. We're going to move on to the rest of the dish. We're going to finish our potatoes. We're going to finish our asparagus, and we're going to check the beef. The beef's got to rest for about 5 minutes. So we're looking for about medium rare, so looking for about 121 in the center. Oh, that's moving fast. 110, it better slow down. Oh, 120. 122, perfect. Okay, so we're just going to leave that up here to rest. The rule of thumb is to rest your protein half the amount of time that you cook it. But again, that's depending on how high your oven is. So if it's a real high oven, that's probably true, because we kind of turn the oven down incrementally, kind of eased into that last 10 degrees. Resting time, probably 5 minutes will be perfect. So while that's resting, we're going to finish our potatoes and we're going to glaze our asparagus. So we're going to take this beautiful asparagus that we blanched and save the blanching water. And have the pot on the side. We're just going to go in for about 10 seconds, maybe 15. So we want to create an emulsion in the pan. We're going to use some butter and some of the cooking. We want a nice warm pan. With the asparagus and a little bit of water. You don't want the pan too hot, you don't want the pan too cold. Emulsions are very heat sensitive. So you want a medium heat and you want to see some water. Tiny amount of butter. You don't want it to be greasy because it's going to split and be greasy. So you want an emulsion. So a tiny amount of butter. That's plenty. It's almost like whisking a dressing. It's creating a nice creamy emulsion around greasy asparagus. I don't know if you can see that. Get it back up. Okay, once again, just gonna. There's plenty of salt in the cooking water to season the asparagus, so that's perfect. Okay, heat. These potatoes started to dry out a little bit. So again, luckily we saved just a tiny amount of cream to help it come back to perfect consistency. Well, that's working. We're going to warm up our sauce a little bit more. Just going to really like this. Heat it up. A nice warm plate. That's the thing I like to do at home. We make the effort to cook hot food and make it nice and delicious. And just because we're at home, we pull out plates out of the cabinet and put all that hot food onto cold plates. Throw your plates into the oven for 20 seconds. You can even put them in the microwave. That'll warm them through. So it's that little bit of extra effort goes a long way.
Question on beef temperature, Chef.
Yeah.
What's the number you're looking for a rare beef?
110 to 115.
110 to 115.
So that's a generous amount of potatoes. We're all hungry tonight. Beautiful glazed asparagus. Chateaubriand. Now remember, guys, this is for 2 people. So you can either cut it straight down the middle, or I'd give it an extra 5 minutes resting time. Just take 3 or 4 nice slices out of it, 3 pieces each. Garnish with that. finally, this beautiful shiny bead sauce. The dessert's ready. Don't need a hot bowl for the dessert, just a nice warm bowl. I'm just going to add a little bit of heavy cream to this caramel. There we have it.
Bring it down for shower.
So simple, delicious, easy, approachable, but done with technique and done the right way. Cooking doesn't have to be hard, it just has to be attention to detail. I'm sure there's a bunch of questions. I'll be happy to take any of them.
Lacey said it looks beautiful, Chef.
Thank you.
Yeah, any other questions? Go ahead and we'll give you a few minutes to text them in. All right, Chef, we got a question. Somehow I missed what we are glazing the asparagus with.
So we just use a little bit of the cooking liquid, so just water from the boiling pot, and a tiny, almost half a teaspoon of butter. And the important thing is to control the heat of the pan. You don't want it boiling, you don't want it cold. You just want it a medium heat, and just you're emulsifying with like a wrist action. The asparagus is kind of emulsifying the water in the butter.
One more question. Can you repeat what you said about the water for green veggies versus potatoes?
Oh, sure. So general rule of thumb, if you're cooking root vegetables, so parsnips, turnips, rutabaga, anything like that, you want to cook them from room temperature water. The reason being is they're a lot denser and usually a lot bigger, so you don't want the outside to cook before the inside. So bringing them up to the boil helps the center of the vegetable come to temperature at the same time as the outside. So it's just a way to cook it a little bit more evenly. If I was to put a potato into boiling water, the outside's going to cook and crumble, and the inside's going to be raw. So that's why we cook from cold. With greens, you cook high heat, boiling water. You want to be in and out as quick as possible, and you want to shop in ice cold water before you're ready to serve. If that makes sense.
And finally, the last comment is, thanks, Chef. It took the two of us to keep up with you. And where does the avocado go?
I recommend smearing the avocado along the bottom of the bowl, and then everything on top of that. So it's nice surprise at the bottom.
So one more question. If I set my oven at 300, about how long do you think to finish the beef to mid-rare?
300. I'd say check it after 15 minutes. Yeah. And as I said, you don't want to put too many holes in it, but it's better to check it more than less.
And question for you and Caitlin, I guess, is, will we get full recipes for meat, potato, and asparagus?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and as I said, it's hard to give a recipe for the beef because everyone's oven's different. You know, everyone's pans are different. Some people don't have resting racks. Some people do. So it's just I try to explain more about feel, technique rather than a recipe. So just be confident. You know, and as I said, the lower the oven, the easier it is not to mess up. You got a lot more room for error with a low oven. It's going to take longer, but it's going to be a lot more consistent cook.
All right, thank you, Chef Liam. I think that's all the questions we have.
Awesome. Well, good luck and take pictures, and I hope it's delicious. Thanks for watching.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.